One.
Well, thank you for coming, everybody. My name is Kyle Mason. I'm the Bennington County Forester, and this is the second part of our What Every Woodland Owner Should Know. Today we're focusing on timber management, and we have three great speakers. We have Steve Hanfield, who's a consulting forester, now licensed with the state of Vermont. He's going to talk to us about forest management, management plans, and how to work with a consulting forester. Then we're going to have Gabe Russo come up and talk to us about timber sales, contracts, and what to expect during a timber sale. And then last, we'll end it with a talk on the tree farm certification program. So first up, Steve Hanfield, Vermont Consulting Forester.
Thank you, Kyle. Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Hanfield, a consulting forester based in Poultney, Vermont, and I'm going to discuss forest management planning for family forests, what every woodland owner should know. So what is a forester? Some people don't know, that's fine. A forester is a professional engaged in the science and profession of forestry. As of July 1st, 2016, anyone claiming to be a forester in the state of Vermont must be licensed. The three most common types of foresters are public, industrial, and independent. Examples of public foresters include state, federal, and municipal foresters. Industrial foresters are often procurement foresters or agents of mills or end users of logs, paid by the mills and working in the mill's best interests. Independent foresters are agents of landowners who are paid by landowners to work in their best interest. So independent foresters are consulting foresters. They're one and the same, like me. The average property I work on typically consists of 50 to 250 acres of forest land. I spend roughly 50% of my time developing forest management plans, and the other 50% of my time marking, preparing, and overseeing the implementation of timber sales. I work primarily in Rutland and Bennington counties and Washington County, New York. So reasons for having a plan. Why would a private woodland owner want a forest management plan? One reason to have a forest management plan is simply to learn more about your land. Plans will often shed light on past land use practices, cultural resources, and unique or rare features or habitats that landowners may have been previously unaware of. Another reason is to document your ownership goals and objectives so that it's very clear to anyone reading the plan what you'd like to accomplish. Another reason is to develop qualitative and quantitative metrics for success and identify performance measures, so determining where, when, how, and why practices will be implemented. Succession planning. A plan is a great tool to leave to heirs to document what you tried to accomplish and what you'd like to see accomplished in the future. The plan should make clear to future owners why you did what you did. Dollars and cents, or developing a plan to help you manage your asset. For many forest landowners I work with, their property and timber is often one of their most valuable assets. Lastly, having a forest management plan is a requirement to participate in tax abatement programs like the Vermont Current Use Program or the New York 480A program. Both programs incentivize practicing good forestry by significantly reducing the person's property taxes. So moving on to actually developing a forest management plan, the first step is to identify the landowner's goals and objectives. This is critical for effective management. Someone could write the most comprehensive, detailed, and informative forest management plan, but if it's inconsistent with the landowner's goals, it was all for naught. The second step is to conduct the forest inventory. This entails data collection based on random systematic sampling. Here's an example of an inventory map. Notice the property boundary in red, and each white circle is a point that I went to and collected data. The third step is the inventory data analysis, or summarizing the data into useful information that provides insight into species composition, forest health, developmental stages, structure, age, and standing timber volumes. The fourth step is GIS mapping, or graphically representing the property. This includes delineating forest land from non-forest land, identifying individual stands or management units, showing existing infrastructure, and identifying areas that may require special treatment, such as wetlands, vernal pools, or sites that are special to the landowner. So here's an example of a forest management plan map that I recently made for a landowner going into the Vermont current use program. Notice the property boundary outlined in red. Stand boundaries delineated by the black and white lines. Blue lines represent streams, and the double black lines represent town roads. The leaf-off ortho imagery in the background is also very useful for management purposes, and it looks nice. So the fifth step in developing a forest management plan is to describe the property as a unit and describe each individual stand, both qualitatively and quantitatively. This includes describing the general characteristics of the property, its place in the landscape, and relationship to surrounding properties. The description should paint a picture of each forest stand so that any forester could pick up the plan and visualize the existing conditions. The description should also address any health problems, invasive species populations, limitations of working on the site, and unique characteristics. The sixth step is to present all potential management options to the landowner and work together to identify which practices, if any, are a good fit and can feasibly be implemented. Site visits are a very important part of this step. Actually showing landowners the proposed activities on nearby properties that were treated similarly. So possible practices may include recreational trail creation or improvement, invasive species treatments, harvesting timber to regenerate desired species, salvage dying trees, create wildlife habitat, or reduce density to increase growth rates. Or to keep growing the trees and do nothing. This is a common practice, as many properties don't need any activities implemented for a few decades based on past land use practices. And the final step is to create a management schedule and finalize the plan. So a detailed schedule that says what we're going to do and when. So the next phase is plan implementation. When implementing your plan, work with your forester. Working with the person who understands your needs and can represent your best interests will likely result in a better outcome. Ask questions. There are no stupid questions. Many landowners only get the opportunity during their tenure as owners to implement practices. So it's important to understand every aspect of what will take place and all of the possible outcomes. And utilize public resources. Don't be afraid to verify what you're being told through an impartial state employee. Vermont County foresters and New York DEC stewardship foresters are available to assist private landowners. So how do you go about finding a forester? A complete list of licensed foresters can be obtained at the website for the Vermont Office of Professional Regulation. This database includes all licensed foresters, public and private. So to narrow down your search and find a consulting forester, search online for a list of Vermont Woodlands Association accredited consulting foresters. These foresters are all consulting foresters and represent the interests of private landowners. Another good resource is the Society of American Foresters, who have a certified forester program. Both SAF and VWA require commitments to ethical codes and require continuing education. With the passage of licensing, Vermont licensed foresters also have to commit to ethical codes and participate in continuing education. But it's an easier way to weed out some of the foresters that don't necessarily provide a private service, SAF and VWA. So lastly, ask friends, family members, and neighbors. If you know someone who works with a forester or that is in current use, ask them about their forester and if they've had positive experiences. So just to cover a few additional resources for landowners. An additional resource is the Natural Resource Conservation Service, or the NRCS, which is part of the USDA. The Environmental Quality Incentives Program, or EQIP, is a cost-share program designed to assist landowners in planning and implementing habitat improvement practices on their property. There's funding available for forest management plan development, invasive plant species treatments, and other habitat improvements. Rates of professionals vary, but the funding typically covers over 100% of the costs of implementing the practices with landowners that I work with. So some examples of habitat benefits through EQIP participation include patch cutting, which creates areas ideal habitat for the black-throated blue warbler, an uncommon bird in Vermont due to habitat loss. Mass tree release, which increases nut and fruit production of mass trees, benefiting animals such as the black bear. And also forest management plan development, which may help you determine you'd like to manage for old, mature forest, benefiting species such as the scarlet tanager. So recently, the Vermont Tree Farm Program, Audubon, and the American Forest Foundation have partnered to launch an initiative, engaging Vermont woodland owners through wildlife. And this just got going about a month and a half, 2 months ago. The initiative area covers Bennington, Rutland, Windsor, and Windham counties. They're offering free bird and habitat assessments by an Audubon biologist and or site visit with a volunteer cooperating consulting forester such as myself. I highly recommend that any landowners interested in forest birds and habitat participate. Interested landowners should contact the program coordinator, Kathleen Wanner, 802-747-7900. Does anybody have any questions? It's a picture of an eagle I took in Polteny a couple winters ago. Yes, sir.
Steve, you flipped past that last phone number a little quickly. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
And I have one more.
Okay.
And that is, you haven't covered, and I don't know if anybody will cover, what is the range of costs that might be associated with a professional forester?
Sure, that's a great question.
That is,
Um,
travel time, as well as field time, as well as management time. Is there an hourly range that we might expect, or?
I think that a lot of foresters might do it differently. You know, some may charge mileage, some may charge time and materials, so based on how much, say, paint they use during marking, or some may just charge a flat hourly rate. I just charge a flat hourly rate, but I've seen it all three different ways.
On the flat hourly rate, what numbers might we expect?
I would say anywhere from probably 30 to 70.
Mm-hmm.
But what you would also want to ask, and I don't know if I would imagine a lot of foresters probably do. I don't really talk to people usually about pricing, but for any task, I'll give a landowner a maximum high and low. I'll give them a range and say it's going to be between this and this, and I won't go over that top limit. So that's something to consider, because you might have somebody that quotes you at a task that'll take them, 30 hours at $30 an hour or $900. You might have somebody that might be $70 an hour that might take them 10 hours, so it might actually be less. So if you're looking for, to employ a forester, I would, not only get their prices, but try to hammer them down on a range, especially for something like a forest management plan, because most foresters do enough of them where they should be able to give you a pretty precise estimate, or at least a range. Yeah. And same with marking, really marking a timber sale, or overseeing the implementation of a sale, checking on the log, or going over the stumpage to make sure the payments are correct. You should be able to get an estimate for that as well. I think some foresters, I don't know if people still do, but I know in the past some foresters would take a percentage. If it came to like cutting wood, they would take a percentage of the proceeds. I don't do that. I think most don't. I think that's kind of been weeded out for the most part, but that's still a possibility. So, but the NRCS EQIP funding is great. There's some income thresholds. I think if you make over $500,000 or $700,000 a year, or inherited that much one year, you may not be eligible for that fiscal year. But the plan funding is a great resource, because it really it'll pay for folks to get a forest management plan. And I think there's definitely quite a few foresters that'll do those plans for less than a cost share amount, so you might actually make a few $100. But not all foresters participate in that. That's another voluntary thing. But if you want to participate, you've got to go through some extensive online training. So. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
What are mast trees?
Mast trees mast refers to the fruit produced by a tree. So there's soft mast and hard mast, but they're trees that their fruit is actually utilized as feed, or it's a seed eaten by animals. So oaks, hickories, beech trees are hard mast producers. Soft mast producers include red maple, white ash, sugar maple, black cherry. Yes, Kyle.
In management plans, there's oftentimes a lot of language that can be confusing to someone that's not, been to school for forestry.
Yeah, a lot of technical language.
How would you recommend a landowner navigates through that?
What I'd really recommend, and I don't see people always take advantage of it, is to really read it in depth and then come back to the forester with some specific questions. Excuse me. I think a lot of foresters do. I definitely do. I include a glossary in the back of any plan, so that any terms that are forestry jargon or lingo or technical terms, you can reference them in the back, and they should be there. But that's a good question, because I would say a good amount of forest management plans are technical information, typically being reviewed by a state forester for one of the tax abatement programs, and they're expecting certain things, and sometimes in a certain order, that just require technical terminology. So, anybody else have any questions?
Steve, I want to follow up on that point about the glossary which you say you provide. Is there an available either online or print source glossary that's available on typical terms or more?
I don't
most
know. I would be very surprised if you Googled that, if you
Yeah.
didn't come up with some type of hit.
Mhm.
But there is a book, I can't remember the exact name of it, but I used it today. And it's something to the effect of like a forestry dictionary. You know, I don't think it may be 15, 20, 30 bucks online, but it's got a real bright, almost yellowish orange binding and cover and back with like a picture of a forest on the front of it. But that's a great resource for looking up technical terms. Yes, ma'am.
And I don't know if anybody's done with that. Did we see your contact information? Is that on the next slide?
Yes.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, if anybody has any questions or would like to talk to me further, I'm always happy to talk to anybody. If you'd like, do a site visit, meet you at your property, you know, at no charge, and just talk about what you'd like to do and if there's any way that I can help you or point you in the right direction. Anyone else?
Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.